Ladies and gentlemen, we are back in studio. Yes, we are back. It is Don't At Me with Alex and Michael live. We are here today, joined by a wonderful guest with a lot of great insight that we have for you, ladies and gentlemen, on the NBA bubble, and that is Ben Golliver. Ben, thank you again for joining us here on Don't At Me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And as usual, I'm joined by my co-show host, Michael. We are back. Shall we do it?
Hey, man, at first I was like, are you going to forget about me? Like, this is our show. Come on, man. Don't be Michael Jackson. We are the Jackson 5, but we are all together.
Me on you instead of Kyrie on the logo. We don't like that, Kyrie. Don't you dare tap dance on Lucky.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Kyrie, for such a historic moment. You are my favorite player in the NBA today. I've said it before. So let's get right to it, man. We got our guest, our guy, Ben here. Ben, right to it, man. How long have you been a national NBA writer for the Washington Post?
Well, first of all, I didn't get in on that incredible intro. You guys should have given me the heads up. I would have hopped on that with you. I've been writing about the NBA since 2007 was my first year. I actually got started. I was in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from originally, and the Blazers won the rights to the number one pick in that draft. So I started a blog called Draft Kevin Durant. I was trying to convince the team to take KD. Unfortunately, I failed miserably in that effort. I couldn't believe it. But that was sort of like my way in. I've been covering the NBA ever since. It's almost 15 years now. And I started at the Washington Post in 2018 after like 6 or 7 years at Sports Illustrated. So it's been a kind of a crazy step-by-step journey. You got to never know what's going to happen. Sometimes I feel like Forrest Gump, where some of these opportunities just fall in my lap. I just happen to be in the right place at the right time. But, I love hoops just like you guys. So it's kind of been a dream run.
Yeah, man. You're doing a great job, man. I saw you were at were you at the latest Laker game in Staples?
Yeah, I go to all the Lakers and Clippers playoff games here. I was laying low a little bit this year just because of the pandemic, and the access has been pretty limited. But I moved to LA in 2016, so I got Kobe's last year, and then I got a real interesting transition period where the Clippers were trying to do it, the Lakers were trying to rebuild. The Clippers couldn't get over the hump, so they retooled. Then all of a sudden, all the superstars showed up. So it's Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and of course we got the Lakers title run out of that last year. So it's been lots of twists and turns. But this year, now they're both on the brink. Now they're kind of both trying to hang tough. And, it could be a situation where LA basketball's over here in like 48 hours. We'll have to see. You know what I mean?
Hey, don't curse us. Do not curse us. We still hoping for a Western Conference Finals, LA versus LA. We can't have you curse us here, Ben. But let's also talk about your podcast, the GOAT Talk podcast. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, we started it up independently, just like you guys, we used to work together at Sports Illustrated, myself and Andrew Sharp, and it's just been a real fun community building experience. For me, that's the best part about podcasts. I'm sure you guys have a bunch of inside jokes and the connections with your listeners and getting the feedback and all that. That's what it's all about. And so, we've been doing that show twice a week. It's greatestofalltalk.com. And, I love it. I think we've got listeners on just about every continent. I'm not sure we've ever heard from Antarctica, but we've heard from the rest of them. And that's what's cool to me. It's like when you have someone just randomly in Mongolia, hitting you up with a question about like, how are the Lakers going to adjust with Anthony Davis injured or whatever? It's like, man, that's how the basketball fans are absolutely everywhere. And so that's why I get such a kick out of it.
I love that.
Rewarding. That has to be so rewarding to know that your audience reach is so vast and that you can connect with so many different people on such a warming and welcoming topic of all topics, just sports overall.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Well, look, it brings communities together, and it brings, I think people who are sometimes like way out in the middle of nowhere. It helps them find some people to connect with. We've got one guy in Iceland who's just always hitting me up on Instagram. He's listening to these shows sometimes at like 3:00 in the morning. He's staying up late to watch the games. Some of the sacrifices that fans will make, it kind of makes me realize I shouldn't take things for granted. And that was actually one thing, going back, you guys mentioned the book that I wrote, Bubbleball. That was like a real focus for me on that book because I felt like I got the golden ticket. You know, there was only a few media members who actually got to go down to Disney World. And so for me, I felt like I was kind of representing for all the hardcore basketball fans out there, the guys who are listening to podcasts around the clock. They're following every single move, injury updates and all this stuff. I kind of wanted to write this book for them. And it's sort of like, hey, just hop on my back. We'll all go down to Disney World together and I'll tell you what it's like. You know what I mean?
True. No, I love it.
So getting into Bubbleball overall, I want to ask, I know it probably seems like a very bland and upfront question that everyone asks you, but from your personal experience in the bubble, really, how was it adjusting to that from your own perspective? And how was it watching all of these basketball players having to adjust to being almost like on a tour, doing a thing away from your family, going away?
93 days, man. You are a superhero.
Well, what's funny is everybody who's down there knows exactly how many days they stayed, right? Everybody was counting. So I think that's kind of a tell to let you know how difficult it was. You know, for me, I thought I went in with my eyes wide open, right? Look, we'd all been in isolation, shut down. I was, playing by all the rules and, trying to be really careful during the pandemic. And so I talked to some doctors, what's this going to be like? But look, it was different. I mean, when you can't even drive down the street, when you can't have anyone over to hang out in your hotel room or really have any communal meals indoors, when they're tracking you with devices around your neck, I had a ring tracking me, I had a bracelet tracking me. They can tell you exactly where you're at on campus, when there's video surveillance everywhere. And there's just a bunch of rules where you have to get tested every single day. You have to fill out questionnaires about your health symptoms every single day. It was just a really, really rigorous experience. And there was kind of no days off. You're just completely thrown into it. And so, while I was down there, look, I mean, we heard all the players complain about how hard it was, but, I put on weight. I didn't sleep well. I was anxious. My stress level was way up. And I didn't even have to play. I'm just out there writing, having great seats at these games. Yeah. And so you can imagine guys like LeBron, Paul George, Danny Green, a lot of these players were telling you how hard it was. I would just co-sign every single thing they said. I mean, it was a very challenging mental experience. And it was the kind of thing where once everybody got out, they're like, we don't want to do that again. I think that's why you saw this season kind of go back to normal, because the players just said, look, you cannot put us down there for another 6 months for a whole season. We can't take it. 3 months was enough. But I will say your point about watching the games up close is right on. The payoff as a basketball fan was just ridiculous access. I mean, sitting courtside, I felt like Rihanna. I got the best seat in the house. There's no noise. I can hear all the trash talk on the court. I can hear the Lakers players, making fun of their opponents. Every time Anthony Davis is on the block, they're calling out different types of food, roast beef, barbecue chicken, all this kind of stuff, getting the trash talk in. LeBron going back and forth with Robert Covington about, who's physical and who's not during that second round series with Houston. I mean, so many great memorable moments from the games themselves that weren't even the highlight level plays. It was just the behind the scenes access. And so in the book, I'm trying to give you a little bit of all that. I want you to be sitting there courtside next to me, kind of, taking in these incredible games, these incredible, game winning shots, buzzer beaters, Bam Adebayo's block shot. I mean, all that stuff. Taking it in from that great angle up close and personal.
Hey, Alex, was that block against your Celtics?
I got to watch that block up close and personal myself at Fox in real time. So yes, that's in fact.
Sorry about that, but yeah, Bubbleball sounded quite like jail ball, man. How tough it was, and I think Dame Lillard said something like that, like it was like jail. So man, more kudos to you. For what you were able to do within those 93 days. And nobody ever thinks about the other people working there. They only think about the athletes, but nobody ever thinks about what the others were going through. And I think that your book and just what you're telling us is giving us a lot, man. So thank you for that. Himes, you got something?
No, can I ask you one real quick point on that? I would just say the difference between this and an actual confinement or jail is we knew when we were going to get out, right?
True.
And if you couldn't handle it, you could go home. And that was actually a rule for the players and a rule for the media. And so when I was actually sitting there, kind of, we got thrown into our hotel room for a week where you couldn't leave the hotel room for any reason because of a quarantine. And that was really, really tough as soon as we got there. Wow. And I was thinking, there's people out there, if you're in solitary confinement, you could be in there for months, weeks, years, and never see the light of day. And so for me, I would always just kind of push back on that comparison just a little bit. I know the players made that comparison. I understand that. But we knew when we could get out, right? There was freedom at the end of the tunnel, and that's not always the case for people. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So we got to talk about today.
Whoa. Yeah. That's what I was going to get to was, do you think that there are
Okay.
any lasting and lingering effects from the bubble that are playing out in real time today?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, look at your Celtics. No disrespect. I don't want to rub salt in the wound, but
No,
I mean, there's a bubble hangover for the Celtics. There's a bubble hangover for the Heat. I think the Lakers, with some of their injury issues during the season, they're experiencing a bubble hangover as well.
True.
And, look, it just wasn't a level playing field in terms of how much time teams had off to rest and recover. And it was a weird free agency period where everything was getting done in 72 hours and you're trying to put your teams together without the typical level of preparation. So for me, this season definitely took place in the shadow of the bubble season because of that, the delay that they had, 4 months shutdown with no basketball.
Yeah.
But I think that the positive from it is that we're getting some new blood. I mean, look at Luka, just absolutely insane first round postseason. Jokic is starting to get Trae Young, great example. Jokic is starting to get a little bit more love nationally. And you could have a situation if the Suns finish this off and the Nuggets finish it off, where you could have, Suns, Nuggets, Jazz, and potentially Dallas, where all those teams, they haven't made the finals in more than a decade, right? So that's just a new landscape. And I think that some of that has happened because of the bubble. And same deal, by the way, in the East, where you've got Milwaukee, they went out in the second round. Brooklyn wasn't, they were out in the first round quick. Philly was out in the first round quick. Atlanta hasn't been there for a couple years. So the downside for the television networks, if they lose the Lakers and the Clippers and the Knicks, then it's like a lot of those big market teams are out, right?
Yeah.
But the upside is you got some new fresh matchups, some fresh faces, and we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah, if I wasn't a Lakers fan, I would applaud that right there, Ben. But I'm a Lakers fan, so I need my Lakers to get to these.
Well, how nervous are you right now? Let me ask you, are you as nervous as Alex was in that first round series against Brooklyn at this point?
Man, to be honest, yes, because the best ability in sports is availability, and AD seems like he can't be available. And without AD, we don't win last year, and we won't win the championship this year. So I'm very, very nervous. But speaking about your Celtics,
what's left to be nervous about, Michael? Let's call a spade a spade. Let's put it out there in the universe. We already know the Lakers are going to go down tonight. It is what it is. There is no chance for hope. As Rob Parker would say,
bet wings.
No way, no how. There is no chance that the Lakers win tonight.
Let's bet some wings. Speaking of Rob Parker, let's bet some wings.
50 wings on it right now that the Lakers go down tonight, because that's just the case. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry, but the Lakers are going down. So,
I love it how you were worried about me jinxing it. He just came on here and ruined the ending for you. He just told you how it's going to go. So, I mean, what could I even have an impact on that?
Hey, just Ben, know that when I take this picture with my 50 wings, remember that this bet was made here on Don't At Me, baby. Hines, you're crying because you're upset, you're disappointed because your team doesn't know what the hell is going on. So let the people know, man.
So as of yesterday, it was announced that Danny Ainge would be retiring. The press conference came. We were also told that Brad Stevens will no longer be the head coach of my Boston Celtics. He will be moving into the full-time GM roles in the office, the front office. So the Celtics are now looking for a new head coach. Amongst other things that they have to do this offseason, like, I don't know, trade for a legitimate center or a pass first point guard or get better bench players or just doing X, Y, and Z. We are now at this point, Ben, where the Celtics are at a big crossroads. So we already had touched on the fact that the hangover from the bubble has led to what is now the Boston Celtics. So I have to ask, what do you think the first thing that gets addressed outside of the head coaching search for the Celtics is?
Well, it's going to be really fascinating. I think you have to start with the coaching search because that's going to tell us what is Brad's priority. Yeah. I was kind of hearing over these last couple of weeks, okay, Danny Ainge might actually be on the way out. And you look at his last couple of years of moves, I mean, he nailed the Tatum trade for sure. But since then, it's been a lot of misses and a lot of struggles in free agency. How do you manage the assets? And some draft picks where maybe they're in the middle of that first round, they're just not panning out as well as they had hoped, right? And so for Brad, it's, hiring that coach is going to be someone who shares a philosophy with him, you would expect. And who's going to be able to kind of pull that locker room back together here after what was a really tough season. They never really fully were on the same page, in my opinion. And part of it was because of injuries and protocol stuff. And part of it was just roster issues. I mean, way too many centers that were not great and just not enough wings. They really felt the absence of Gordon Hayward as well. I think if, to me, the top priority should be a post Kemba Walker solution at point guard. You mentioned pass first, also just a durable guy, a guy who could stay out there and be a playoff contributor. I mean, when he's going down in the middle of this series, he was starting to get exposed at times in last year's playoffs as well. He's just not physical enough, and he's not as quick going to the basket as he used to be as well. And so I think that's going to be the biggest priority to me. You can find some big men to just kind of put in there as placeholders. They used to get some great minutes from a Daniel Tice. I mean, you're going to be able to kind of plug that hole. To me, they do need someone to kind of lighten Tatum's load a little bit, and then also just, facilitate the offense and get people into good shots, as opposed to just kind of doing my turn, your turn stuff with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I mean, to me, it's a very desirable coaching job, right? Brad was there for a long time. Ownership has shown a lot of trust in Ainge. I mean, he was there for almost 2 decades, right? Mm-hmm. Good coaches look for stability, and Boston has been able to represent that in the past. So there's probably going to be some other coaching jobs opening up. But to me, Boston's probably going to have that best job on the market. They should get some pretty good candidates. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be like a Chauncey Billups, a Sam Cassell. I mean, those types of names, guys who have sort of, almost enhanced out of the assistant coaching role, and they've been ready to have their own job. I think those kinds of people are who you're going to be looking at, I think, if you're the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and you said the name for me that I think that they should really look at.
We
Sam
agree.
Cassell.
We both agree on it.
Hey.
Oh, really?
Am I right? The Celtic fans live off of the championship they won in 2008. You might as well get a guy who learned from Doc Rivers, that was a part of, his coaching staff and is there in Philly now. Sam Cassell will be perfect. Like, other than, of course, finding a new number 3 because the Kemba experiment didn't work. Go and get Sam Cassell, which will help because, you're adding a black coach there into the Boston Celtics, a guy who's an NBA All-Star that can get along with the players, who knows what they're going through. I just think that he will be the perfect fit for them. He finished his career with the Celtics, so Sam Cassell should be the guy in Boston.
Look, Sam Cassell to me is probably the most ideal candidate. Like, I'm not as sold on Chauncey Billups as much as everyone else is, just because I haven't seen his coaching resume as much as I've seen Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell has been with a lot of proven and winning organizations. What does Boston have a reputation of? With Doc Rivers, he was a point guard. He got to understand the system. He was a previous player. That's something that attracts players. A guy that played at a high level, played a position that was really valuable on the team, and understands how NBA offenses work. And that's really what the league is gearing towards, having ex-players now becoming head coaches. And as you touched on, Michael, having a black head coach in Boston does make a difference. Let's just say it and let's call it accurately. That makes a big difference when you're trying to acquire free agents, especially a black head coach that's known for his accolades as a player, a guy that was known for his accolades also as an assistant. He's ready. He's ready to take that step, and he's ready to be able to lead a squad. And what better way to go into that coaching role than with a legitimate all-star for the future, the next face of the Boston Celtics, and Jason Tatum, with Jaylen Brown right there, and a lot of fun pieces to play with, and a GM that really does know how to run a team. Like, Brad Stevens gets the most out of his players, which tells me he's going to be the best to scout players for this squad.
Wait up. We don't know how he runs a team. That was Danny Ainge. Let's figure that thing out. But so we can get Ben out of here. Ben, it's been a different playoffs. A lot, like you said, we may not have an LA team in the second round. It's just mind-boggling. The Knicks let me down. What are your thoughts on the NBA playoffs so far? And if you could pick a favorite right now, who would it be?
I usually look at talent first, and so I think my pick before the playoffs was actually the Brooklyn Nets. I had the Lakers reaching the finals because I thought they were going to be able to keep their stars healthy. Mm-hmm. And Anthony Davis was just such a tough matchup for everybody. I mean, you saw it when he was playing well against Phoenix. They had no answer for him. The Clippers don't have a great answer for him because Ibaka's been hurt. Mm-hmm. I mean, just go right down the list. He was kind of that X factor, player to me in the West. I think now you've got to actually come back and look at the Utah Jazz. A lot of people wanted to overlook them, kind of put them to the side. They're just a regular season team. Well, the big bad, kids on the block were the Lakers, the experienced championship superstar level guys. Mm-hmm. We're seeing the Clippers. They can't close out games. I mean, Utah's got an incredible offense and a really strong defense.
Sure.
And I think they're just probably the best and most balanced team. Mitchell's back on the court and healthy in the Western Conference. So it's funny, like, pretty much everyone said, okay, good job, Utah. We'll give you Defensive Player of the Year for Rudy Gobert. Quinn Snyder could be a Coach of the Year candidate. Like, it was a lot of head patting. You know what I mean? Like, okay, Good job during the regular season. Now everybody's got to come back around and say, wow, they got a great home court advantage. The crowd's crazy loud there. They're in a situation where they've got more fans than a lot of these other buildings that are there. And they've been through the fires before. They haven't made the Western Conference Finals with this group, but they've been in the playoffs every single year, and they've won some series in the past. So to me, I almost wonder if they've become the new favorites in the West. I actually think there's a chance Brooklyn versus Milwaukee is the best series we get in the entire postseason, which is crazy to think about.
Agreed.
And it's terrible that it happens in the second round, right?
Yeah.
But, KD versus Giannis, big market, small market, super team versus, Giannis signing the Supermax and staying loyal. There's and you also have Bud, needing to get over the hump.
Yeah.
And Steve Nash, it's his first ever hump. He's never been there. We don't know what to expect from him when the pressure cranks up.
Sure.
So there's so many good contrasts between that series. That's the one I'm going to be watching the most closely. Yeah. And I think there's a good chance the winner of that series wins the whole thing.
Hey, and I said it before. I said that will be the best series of the playoffs. Milwaukee versus the Nets. It looks like the Lakers and Clippers may be out of it. That may be the NBA Finals right there. But I got Brooklyn. Doesn't matter who wins the West if it's not the Lakers. Brooklyn's going to win the championship. Himes, what's up, man?
I think that we end up getting a Philadelphia 76ers versus Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay.
No.
I believe
you're not worried at all about Embiid's knee now.
Yeah, the meniscus scares me.
Like we said about the Lakers, Ben had noted that, the Lakers would have been his pick to go to the finals, barring, any injuries, right? I had said I didn't trust the Lakers injuries to dissipate. I trusted in the fact that they were going to come back to haunt them, and that's what's occurring. With Embiid's injury, I think that he will be okay because of how freaking good they are. They can keep afloat without him for a game or so in a series. That's what they proved to me against Washington, right? Mm-hmm. They really can tamper scoring if necessary, right?
Yeah.
They will allow two guys to go at it. They will be able to chomp down on everyone else on the court. They're allowing two as opposed to three, which I think is big for them defensively. But I think that Philadelphia, and I think with what they are doing, with what Doc has done with their system offensively and how well Ben Simmons is actually acclimating in this system and you're getting the most out of him, man, I think that they're going to end up facing the Bucks. But I think that we do get a Bucks Jazz finals.
Ooh.
The worst NBA finals the NBA could have ever asked for. Who wants to? Stephen A is probably like, I don't want to travel to Milwaukee and Utah. I wish I could go to LA, man.
If it ends up being that series, I think that the Bucks actually win a title. I think Giannis gets a title this year potentially. I think that this is the best chance for him to actually get a title in his career so far. Not having.
Oh, Alex, it's a great point. In the bubble last year, part of the reason why LeBron was able to win it, he didn't have to go through KD, didn't have to go through Steph, didn't have to go through Giannis, didn't have to go through Kawhi. Mm-hmm. You flip it around this year, whoever comes out of the East, they don't have to go through Kawhi probably. They don't have to go through LeBron. They don't have to go through Anthony Davis. No. The path is wide open for both those teams, or really any of the teams in the Eastern Conference. If you pick Philly, Milwaukee, or Brooklyn, all of a sudden that path's looking pretty open, isn't it?
Yeah. As long as you can get to a team that really only has maybe one guy to get enough fouls on Giannis and contain him for a little bit, for a fact that that's a series that they can win because Giannis is so dominant now. And his ability to shoot and mimic like Chris Middleton, I think that's something that we don't talk about enough. Those jump shots are identical. Have you seen the video footage of him taking the fadeaway jump shot the same way from the same position as Chris Middleton? It's identical. The fact that he's now been able to actually incorporate some of these things in his game, I think it's really finally time that we give Giannis a strong look to getting to the finals and then winning a ring.
Remember I said this, guys. Brooklyn in the house. That's what we're going to hear.
I just really don't want to root for number 11 or whatever number he is now on Brooklyn. I don't want to root for him.
My favorite player, Kyrie, looks like he may get his first championship without LeBron.
Who?
Man, whatever. But Ben, thank you so much, man, for joining us. Let our listeners know where they can find all of your work, man, all the great things you're doing.
Well, on that point about Brooklyn, there's so many chips on their shoulders. Kyrie needs one without LeBron. KD needs one without Steph. Harden just needs one. He's been thirsty, right? I mean, and Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, those guys need him too. So, they couldn't have any more motivation going into this series than that right there. And same deal for Giannis, by the way. He wants one as well. So we'll see how that shakes out. They can find me on Instagram at Ben.Golliver. WashingtonPost.com/sports. Bubbleball is on Amazon. Just search for it with my name, Ben Golliver. And I appreciate you guys having me on here. It was a great conversation. I could tell, opposites attract on this show. You guys are going after each other. I love it.
What we do here at Don't At Me.
Hey, he's my best bud, but then he's also my worst enemy. So I don't know how that works out.
It's a perfect podcast formula. I'll tell you that.
Hey, thank you so much, man. Hey, so we're gonna have to link up, man. I didn't know you were out here in LA. We're gonna have to for sure link up, maybe get some grub or something like that, man. But keep doing the great work. We thank you guys, man. It's the latest episode. Don't At Me. Hans, take it away, baby.
And don't worry, we'll get together and have drinks after the Lakers go down in the first round. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can find us at Don't At Me at Michael and Alex on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find us on all podcast streaming services. Just search for Don't At Me with Alex and Michael, as well as Michael the PG on all social media. And I'm at Hamzaleh on social media. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.
Peace.